Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. My name is Tim Wheaton with MMA Sucka, and joining me today is the UFC legend, a Hall of Famer, a pioneer, a former champion, Pat Miletich. Pat, how are you doing today, sir?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I appreciate you being here. Now, there's a lot of items I want to get to, but let's start. We're going to talk about what was happening in the past with you, but I really want to get to what's going on with you right now. Right now, we're working on Caged Aggression. So this is Friday, October 15th and Saturday, October 16th. This is a two-night event with Caged Aggression. We have Keenan Jackson versus Devonnier Jackson, and the next night is Montel Williams versus Josh Neal for the welterweight title. Tell me a little bit more about Caged Aggression and your work with them as well.
Well, Caged Aggression's been around quite a while here in this area in Iowa. Mike Goodwin has done a great job. He puts on very, very good shows. And when Access TV was purchased by Anthem, which is a Canadian broadcast company, and I'm sorry, I broke my reading glasses. I haven't had time to go get a new pair. But the whole department for mixed martial arts got let go, and that was about 40 families, 40 guys and women who had families to take care of. And I was a little upset about it. It was unfortunate. I think we had a great product over at Access TV. And so after a few days of sitting at home and being a little upset about it, I thought, well, why can't we do this on our own? And I started calling a few friends here in the area who have, broadcasting experience. And I said, can we put this together? And they said, well, let's give it a shot. We'll do a test run and see if we can pull it off. And we were able to do it, and we've been doing it ever since. So it's a good partnership. Mike has very good shows. And since, the COVID thing happened, a lot of shows obviously weren't active. They weren't doing things here in Iowa. Luckily, our governor and athletic commission were able to allow us to do shows. And we were very happy about that. And because of that, a lot of athletes that normally would not fight on what you would consider a local type show are really chomping at the bit to get in, because there's just not enough fights out there for these guys.
Yeah, and it's especially hard for the last year fighters who need to fight to get paid. One of the great things that you folks are doing, there's something with a referral code where I believe viewers can type in a referral code and it will go directly to the fighters. Is that accurate?
Yes, you can pick a fighter that you would like to benefit from your purchase, and a lot of people are doing that, and that's really a good business model in profit sharing, I think, for athletes. And I think I'm surprised a lot more aren't doing it, to be honest with you.
Well, I think it's a great idea. I really like what you guys are doing, and you can check out more information with cagedaggression.tv. And I think one of the more interesting things that I was told, Brandon Mills is fighting on this card, and he is the nephew of your former training partner, Matt Hughes. Is this correct?
He is. And he's also a collegiate wrestler, has that background, but he's got a little better boxing than Matt.
That's okay. If he's got some of the skills of Matt Hughes, he'll be okay. That is great stuff. So it's a two-night event, Friday, October 15th and 16th. That is Caged Aggression 32. And make sure to check out cagedaggression.tv. But Pat, I'm going to go right back to the beginning here. You fought at a time when things were absolutely buck wild in the world of NHB and MMA. Why did you enter this sport in the first place? Like, it was a time when there was almost no rules. There was no regulation on it. There was no gloves. What motivated you to get into it?
Well, I think it was kind of just the way things happened. I was in college, and my mother got sick with heart problems, had to go home, take care of her. I still wanted to be competitive. I was working 3 jobs, pouring concrete during the day and bartending and bouncing at security at different clubs and things like that. And, I sat down one day and I said, this is not what was intended for my life. It just was not. And when I was pouring concrete, we did big highway jobs and things like that. One of the foremen, who was from Kentucky, told me that a karate man could beat up a wrestler any day. And this is before the UFC even came along. This is long before the UFC. And so I said, obviously you've not had a wrestler from Iowa grab a hold of you, apparently.
Yeah.
And so we at lunchtime we went out in the field, and I took him down really easy and didn't beat him up or anything. Slapped him around a little bit. Then he gave me a free week pass to go to a kickboxing gym. And I had boxed a little bit when I was younger. And so I thought, I think I should do that. And ended up fighting a lot of kickboxing matches, and then the UFC came along, and I said, they actually created my sport. This is incredible. So it was kind of divine intervention, you know.
And you've been there since the very beginning with guys like John McCarthy and others working with athletic commissions to kind of carve out what the rules should look like. You had a hand in that. Looking at mixed martial arts today, what rules, whether it's judging or with fighter pay or any of the specific rules, would you want to change?
You know, I would say, well, you know, Monty Cox and I actually wrote the rules for the state of Iowa, which was, I think, that Iowa was the first athletic commission, I think, to actually, you know, let it go, let it happen. And we were fighting in Illinois before that. But the rules, the stomp kick to the knee, I think should absolutely be outlawed. I mean, that's a sudden traumatic blow directly to a joint that can cripple somebody, not only end their career, but cause them problems in life for, you know, forever. Not that, you know, getting hit in the head doesn't cause problems, but, you know, it's a sudden traumatic injury that I think it's if we're going to call it a sport, it shouldn't be necessary, you know. And I was all for headbutts and elbows and knees to the head on the ground and everything like that, because when that stuff was legal, well, that's what you trained to defend yourself against, you know. So that's why, you know, you see the guys getting kicked in the head when they're not all the way up or all the way, you know, the grounded opponent getting kicked in the face, that sort of stuff. If that stuff was legal, yes, it's going to happen, but everybody's looking for it that way. So it's just, you fight by the rules you're given, you fight under in the atmosphere that you're in, you know, whether it's an alley, whether it's a, you know, in a cage, in a boxing, whatever, you just fight by the rules. That's the way it is.
It was an old training partner of yours, Mark Coleman, said that when they outlawed headbutts, I had to learn some skills.
I tell you, Mark had a lot of strength and amazing wrestling ability, so he was able to get by on that stuff a lot.
Well, Mark had everything. Like, there wasn't some area that he was bad at. If anything, he was just a little bit too. I mean, he got old. That was it. Otherwise, he would still be a champion today if he didn't get old.
He definitely could be. He definitely could be, and that's, you know, that's something that's the wrestlers with that kind of power are always going to be tough to deal with.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, you used to train with guys like Matt Hughes, some guys fighting today like Robbie Lawler. There's some of your training partners, Rich Franklin, Dave Monet, Mark Coleman, Jens Paul. There's so many guys, Hall of Fame, champions. Who is the best guys to train with? Who are the worst guys to train with?
For the most part, everybody was good to train with. It was, you know, everybody understood the mentality of the gym of, you know, push whoever's got fights coming up, push them, make them work very hard. But we were pretty good about not getting hurt before fights for the most part. I mean, yes, I went into fights injured before, and other guys with the typical nagging injuries and stuff. But, you know, as a coach, I guess it was my job to make sure that those guys got there, you know, in one piece, so to speak. They needed to get paid, and that's my job, to push them to the brink. And you know, when I saw things maybe falling apart technique wise, I would pull the throttle back and tell them to just go to the ground. Let's do some grappling, whatever. No live takedowns, you know, when people are fatigued and stuff. Just knee injuries, shoulder injuries, stuff like that could happen.
Well, especially when you get a lot of guys like that with egos that big, especially in sparring, you can get some injuries pretty bad, right? So it's good that you scale them back a little bit. Former training alumni of yours, Robbie Lawler, still fighting today. I mean, this guy started when he was 16 years old, right? Is it validating to still see him fighting? Do you still watch him fight, or is it more concerning for his safety? Where do you land on that scale?
Well, you know, the thing is, if Robbie has a fight where he is motivated to be there, he's absolutely, you know, devastating. I think for Rob, when Rob fights, and I understand the mentality of when he doesn't feel threatened, like somebody can't hurt him, he really, he kind of throttles things back a little bit. It's almost the mentality at times where, well, they're not attacking me, so it's not a big deal, or they can't hurt me, so I don't feel threatened, so I don't need to be that active. I'll wait, you know. And sometimes that mentality can slip away. The fight can slip away from you in that way.
You almost need to push. If things are a little bit dangerous, you need to push in that sense, kind of idea. And I wanted to ask you as well, where would you rather fight, Pat? In a UFC cage or in a bar bathroom in Iowa? Where's the preferred fighting area for you?
Well, I'd prefer to get paid if I'm going to fight, but I would prefer not to have to fight at all. But I really didn't. It's not like I love the competition. I love the camaraderie. I love the intensity. But the fight itself, I didn't. Let's say I kind of grew weary, tired of the actual fighting. Like when I kicked Shoney Carter in the head and knocked him out. I actually felt really bad about that. I really did, because I'd known him for a long time, and so it was. I actually walked over, and there was a sense of urgency in that fight because I had such a horrible weight cut, that I was pretty diminished. The weigh-ins were the morning of the fights in New Jersey at that time, and so I was pretty diminished. So I took him down and mounted him and stayed mounted on him the whole first round and just let him struggle to wear himself out, and then head kicked him and knocked him out in the second round. So there was a sense of urgency there. I wanted that one to be.
They've lost you there.
I'm
Sorry.
here.
Lost you there for a minute. We were just talking about Shoney Carter. So with that kind of attitude, do you see that in other fighters, or do other fighters push through that attitude, or do you think that was unique to you?
There are other fighters that have that same feeling. I mean, again, I love the intensity. I love the crowd. I love the camaraderie of training with the guys, of being on the road with the guys, things like that. It's awfully tough to replace that in life, because you learn to respect people, no matter where they're from, what they're about, what their religion is, anything like that. When you train with people that intensely for that long and helping each other, get to the top of that mountain, there's a lot of brotherly love in that. It's they're kicking your ass, because they care about you and they want to see you do good.
Yeah, and I talked to Frank Shamrock a few weeks ago, and he said something similar of life is chaotic, but fighting is kind of simple. You know what the consequences are. When you screw up, you get kicked in the head. So you learn not to do that, right? Yeah, Frank's another good guy. So there's a lot of legacy fights going on right now, celebrity YouTube boxing. You did a kickboxing fight last year against Michael Nunn. Is this something that you want to continue? Is it something you want to do again? How did you feel about the fight?
That was a situation where Mike wanted to get his name back out there. And, at the time that, the lockdowns were going on everywhere around the world and all of that. And I've got a slight dislike for bullies, in life. And that's the way I see, what's happening to mankind today is there's a lot of elites in ivory towers that are handing down the orders and destroying a lot of lives, destroying a lot of people's lives and causing a lot of mental illness, a lot of drug abuse, a lot of overdoses, a lot of just bad things are happening to mankind right now because of their actions. So I'm a little defiant, and I said, let's do the fight. And they kept trying to push it back. They pushed it back. And we finally got it to happen in August of last year. And we had, I think it was about 4,000 people showed up in the middle of everybody being scared about COVID and all of that. So we had a good crowd. For me, and Michael also, we wanted to bring our community together. There was so much division, deliberate division by the media, on every front possible. And I had just grown weary of it. And I said, let's do this thing. And he agreed. And we went out and did it. And, it was, I've known him for many years. I respect him a great deal. He's an incredible boxer. His hands, still in his 50s, are ridiculously fast. And, I only kicked him a few times hard in the legs, but he was mad at me the next day because he couldn't walk very well. But it was, to me, it was a big success. It was, my goal to show people to stop being afraid, to stop being ordered around, and just our citizens, our fellow citizens we have to understand that we aren't different. No matter what your beliefs are on COVID or anything like that, is that everybody reacted out of fear. Everybody then reacted out of love for their families, love their community, love for their part of the world, their country, and mankind in general, right? No matter what your beliefs are. So we have to come to that understanding with our fellow man, that no matter what your beliefs are, we all reacted in a certain way, out of love ultimately. And we've got to understand that everybody's doing it in their mind for the right reason, what they're doing, the decisions they're making, right? We just also have to remember that our fellow man should have the right to decide what goes on their body and their face, a medical device, and what goes into their body. And that is a line that should not be crossed.
Right. Absolutely makes sense. No, I appreciate you talking about that a lot. And I mean, it's tough to switch paths in an interview, but I need to ask the question because it's been bugging us for years and we've been talking about it for years now. You have confirmed in no uncertain terms, Pat, that Lee Murray definitely knocked out Tito Ortiz in that alleyway. 100%. No doubt about it. But I've heard from Jeff Sherwood. I've heard from others. There's video somewhere. Does this video actually exist? Do you think it's still in existence?
I was told that by Dana White in a phone call that he was having a copy of the surveillance video sent to him, because when I talked to him, Tito had told him that my team and a bunch of guys from England jumped him and his guys, which none of my guys were involved in the fight at all. No. There was Tito or Lee Murray and a gentleman by the name of Paul were the only two that I could confirm actually threw punches. Bo, who was one of Tito's friends, poor guy, got knocked out, and it was all over a misunderstanding. But nonetheless, when I told Dana what my version of the story was, he said, well, I'm going to have, surveillance video. It's coming to me and I'm going to look at it and we'll see if you're lying or not. I said, good, make a copy of it for me. So I don't know if it exists, but that was his maybe way of trying to call my bluff and see if I'd get nervous or something. But,
Well, the thing is, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that if Lee Murray got in an alley fight in a club in England, that tape's gone now. Of like Lee Murray was the kind of guy who would have some say in what's going on here. Am I crazy for saying this?
Not necessarily crazy for saying that, not necessarily, but he didn't have any say in getting out of that prison in Morocco where he still sits, unfortunately. And look, do the crime, do the time, right?
No, Lee Murray's